Well, it's time now for a look at what's making this Monday's French newspapers with our press reviewer, Elena Cassas. She joins me now. Hello, Elena.
Hello again, Nana.
Right, so the Tunisian election, as we've mentioned already in the news bulletin, that's getting a lot of coverage in the French press today.
Let's have a look at Le Figaro first. They call it a shining example of political maturity that should be a beacon for the whole Arab world. Of course, they're talking about the huge turnout in Tunisia yesterday, which has taken a lot of the papers by surprise. Just a few days ago, I was standing here telling you the papers were saying that so many Tunisians had become disillusioned with their electoral process and worried that it was being taken over by elements still loyal to the Ben Ali regime, that they might not go out and vote. Of course, they confounded those predictions completely yesterday with that soaringly high turnout, and the papers are really celebrating that today.
And one paper, however, thinks that it might be a little bit early for Tunisians to celebrate.
Well, in Libération, they report that about 100 Tunisians are on hunger strike because they're not getting any medical care to cope with the injuries that they received when they were demonstrating during the original revolution against Ben Ali, and his troops fired on the crowds, obviously giving lots of people bullet wounds that they're still struggling with today. Now, they're apparently not getting any free medical care from the new government to help them cope with that, and about 100 people, as I said, have decided to go on hunger strike. So obviously they didn't vote in yesterday's election, and neither did their friends and family, and they tell the paper that their case is quite symbolic of how some people loyal to Ben Ali are still in control of a lot of public services in Tunisia, and everyone seems to have forgotten what happened to the actual people who fought and were wounded in that revolution.
Another side to yesterday's election then. But here in France, there are also a lot of Tunisians. Tunisia, of course, a former French colony. So have they been voting as well?
Yes, Le Point has been down to the ballot box here in Paris yesterday and was doing exit polls of Tunisian citizens who'd voted there. About a third of them apparently went for the Islamist party Ennahda, and another 30% went for secular leftist parties. So they reflect pretty well how Tunisians voted in Tunisia as well, as far as we know at the moment.
OK, well, the other big story hitting the French papers today, of course, is the euro crisis, and that's hitting the front pages quite a lot.
Sarkozy has run out of credit. That's what Libération thinks this morning. They've done a poll of their readers, and apparently 2/3 of people think that whatever Sarkozy announces now, there's nothing he can do to help the euro crisis. They just think he's ineffective, and a full 3/4 think nothing he's done so far has been useful either. Their editorial on the inside doesn't make very much better reading for the president either. They reckon whatever he says and does at international financial summits isn't very relevant either. No one's listening to him. They say the Eurozone project was always designed by the Germans. They were always pulling the strings behind the scenes. Now the mask has dropped, and it's clear that it's only what Angela Merkel says that matters.
Do any of the leaders, do the papers think that the leaders might come up with any kind of solution, or is it pessimism across the board?
Le Figaro has got some better news, at least for the president. They've got Sarkozy and Merkel are moving forward as a headline, and on their editorial they say that if only the French could be brought to understand that Nicolas Sarkozy is doing the right thing about the crisis, then maybe they would vote for him. But they do recognise that it's a bit of a hard sell. They've got some other good news about the economic crisis inside of Le Figaro. Apparently it's good for your health. Any idea how that might be?
I can't really think, except maybe if you buy less sugary foods because you haven't got any money.
No, apparently it's really good for your libido. Scientists have tested this, according to Le Figaro, by testing how people reacted to pornographic images after they'd been told about very stressful or painful things.
I don't know how people come up with these ideas for studies.
Neither do I, but some scientists did. So apparently once you've been very stressed out by something like the economic crisis, it sends your libido through the roof. Apparently that's because of the evolutionary reasons that if we think the end might be nigh, especially our own end, then we're more likely to think about procreating and passing our genes on to the next generation.
Well, that's a very nice French attitude to take to the economic crisis, and perhaps staying in is certainly cheaper than going out as well. So thanks very much.
Well, the scientists they've quoted say that apparently in previous economic crises the birth rate has gone up, so there's some evidence for this.
OK, well, thanks very much indeed, Elena, for that look at all today's French newspapers.